Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about An Unearthly Child by Anthony Coburn. Now, I also have the script book of this, so I thought that was really cool, so I thought I'd show that off. Now, before I begin, I just want to state that this is usually considered a 4-part story, with part 1 being set in modern time, Totter's Lane, and then parts 2 to 4 set in the cavemen times. Now, a lot of people don't like the caveman stories because the first episode is just so good. So what I'm doing is I'm reviewing the first episode on its own, and then the next episode then of the marathon will be part 2, 3 and 4. So this will just be about the first ever episode. However, we're still talking about 2 episodes here because you see, the thing is, this episode was actually filmed twice. The first version is the pilot episode, which was never shown, and then the second version is the aired version, the one that we did get to see. And I thought there'd be a very nice comparison. I might forget which version I'm on about, but however, we'll see how it goes. So the episode starts off with Ian and Barbara talking about Susan. Now, they seem very concerned about her. In the pilot version, it's a lot more intense, and the camera is a lot more action-packed with the... No, it's not action-packed, but it's a lot more dramatic. There's lots of zooms in and moves around and stuff. Whilst in the aired version, the camera is much more still, with only a few camera differences. Now, I personally prefer the pilot version. In the pilot version, Ian seems to be a lot more with Barbara, as into the nature of Susan, whilst in the aired version he seems to be more like, this is a bit strange. A great example is when they're just about to leave the room and Barbara suggests that they follow her to Susan's house. In the pilot version, he's just kind of like, okay, yeah. And then, but in the aired version, he's like, what? Okay. It's just a little small detail that they changed, but I thought, I personally prefer the little joshing bit in the aired version. However, camera-wise, I prefer the pilot version. So then they go into a room where Susan is, and they have a little chat with her, and she seems a bit... When we first see her in the room by herself, she's listening to a song, she's dancing, she does this weird kind of dance with her hands, which brings back more of the mystery, that the way she dances is very not like a normal teenager would dance. So there you go. And then obviously Susan and Ian and Barbara, come into the room, and the scene then plays out in the pilot version a lot more with Susan more defensive, with her guard mainly up as she's talking about the fog, that she likes the fog, and she keeps a lot to herself. Now, those lines are in the aired version, however, she seems a lot more open, and I think Caroline's performance in each version is brilliant. However, I prefer the pilot version. There's a lot more mystery to seem into Susan. Whilst in the aired version, it's more like a child curiosity. Now, they're trying to ask her, can they take her to her house? Because Barbara actually tried getting Susan's address, and they found that it leads to a junkyard, which is very bizarre. But Susan likes the fog. Now, in the pilot version, Ian says that we want... Barbara seems concerned about the fog, but Ian is like, we won't provide you of your romantic pleasures, or something like that. And I thought it was a really great line, which they were cut from the aired version, which I thought was a real shame. So then Ian and Barbara leave the room, and in the pilot version, Susan does this little weird drawing. She kind of like paints ink, and then she does a square, and then she scrambles it as if to be like, this is something that this time should not see. Which I thought was really cool. However, one of the complaints when they were making it was that what the hell was she drawing? Now I personally liked that we didn't know what it was. It left a bit more mysterious. In the Ed version, she gets a book from Barbara on the French Revolution, which kind of ties into a later story, which I find really cool. And she reads it, and she is like, "That's not right. That isn't right either." So they do kind of keep that element. However, it's a lot more explicit, I think, in the Ed version. So Ian takes Barbara into his car, and they wait outside the junkyard. Now the scenes here play basically the same in each version, where they talk about Susan and how she's acting in class, and they talk about, and it keeps building up the mystery about Susan. For example, in history she seems to be very, very good in it, and in science she seems very good, but in certain times in her science class it was like she seemed really bored with the answers, with the task she's given. Like she's given this task about like changing the colours of the chemicals, and she's like, yeah, but it's a bit obvious, isn't it? Like she's kind of like talking down to Ian, and in both versions they're both the same, so it doesn't matter. And then in another class where they talk about a task with a 3 dimensions, Susan then starts to freak out, saying that you can only do it with another 2 dimensions, and Ian goes, so you need the 4th dimension for space, so what do you make the 5th, you make the 4th one time, so what do you make the 5th one? And Susan goes, space. And with it comes this really eerie music, kind of music, and like I said, there's a lot of mystery. The atmosphere in this episode is absolutely brilliant. The directing in this episode is absolutely brilliant. Waris, Hussein, the first Doctor Who director, did a fantastic job at bringing out the atmosphere. There were a lot of night scenes, a lot of dark, a lot of eerie music. A lot of it builds up a lot. It feels very classic. You know, you're watching it and you can feel that this is like A-class television. So Ian and Barbara see Susan go into the junkyard, and they follow her in, and they couldn't find her. However, they do find a police telephone box. I wonder what that could be. They look around and they can't find her, and then all of a sudden an old man comes in. An old man named the Doctor. But Doctor Who? Let's find out, shall we? Ian and Barbara chat with him. Now, this again is where the differences in the versions. In the pilot version, the Doctor's a lot more defensive. He is straight to the point. He stares them down and is like, what are you doing here? Get out, kind of attitude. In the Ed version, he's a lot more playful and joshing, and he kind of avoids answers to questions. For example, in the Ed version, Ian asks the Doctor about where's Susan and is it okay if they look inside the police box. In the pilot version, the Doctor's like, you're being ridiculous. I suggest you go away now. In the Ed version, while Ian's talking about that, he's looking at a painting. He's like, I've never wondered that. I've never seen that before. And then he answers. He's like, I don't know what you're on about. This has nothing to do with me. Mind your own bit. I don't like to be involved in your situation. So please go away. Do you see? Can you hear the difference? Now, I get why they did this, but personally I prefer the pilot version. There's a lot more drama, a lot more tense into the scene, and then again when Susan calls out to the Doctor through the police box, and Ian and Barbara walk in, and then you see the inside of the TARDIS for the first time. Now, I absolutely love this set. the original TARDIS designs is up there as one of the greatest sci-fi designs out there. Seriously, man, it just shines out in black and white. In the pilot version, Susan's got this weird like silver waistcoat over a shirt. In the Ed version, she's got like a normal like 60s striped B-top, which I personally prefer the Ed version to the costume. I don't know if anyone cares about that. I just thought I'd bring it up because that's just one of the big differences between the two. So then they have a little chat, and now there's a lot of differences in the lines of the show. The pilot version, there's some really great lines which I'm sad that they cut out. There's a great one where he's trying to explain to Susan how the humans won't understand or how they can affect time, and he is saying about like what if like Napoleon had the gunpowder or the Romans had the airplane. I might have got those mixed up, but that was such a great line, and I'm so sad that they took it out. And there's also a great line where the Doctor in the pilot version says something along the line of, when your ancestors were working out fire, my civilization learned this farthest reach of space travel to a game for children. And you can see it in the Doctor. He is absolutely pissed when he says that. In the Ed version, he's a lot more, he kind of like jokes around about it. And I'm trying to think of the lines from the Ed version now. Damn it, I've forgot, sorry. The Doctor then suggests that they can't leave Ian and Barbara out in the world with this knowledge because, you know, it's a police box that's bigger on the inside. How are they gonna, if they explain it to the authorities, then maybe they can believe that this is possible and can mess up time forever. So the Doctor decides to kidnap him. Now Susan in the Ed version decides that she'd rather leave the Doctor and the TARDIS rather than leave the 20th century, which kind of foreshadows what happens to her in the future. So that was really cool. And then I think in the Ed version, I can't remember if it's in the pilot version, but in the Ed version, he's like, okay, go. But then he turns around and you see him playing with the switches, and Susan's like, no! And then Ian grabs the Doctor, and then everybody falls, and then you see the screen, and kind of zoom out to London, zooms out of Earth, and then it's like this weird, like, the opening intro effect, which, when you first, the atmosphere, the sound effects, the direction, it just all fits perfectly. And then the cliffhanger of the episode has the TARDIS still has a police box land in like a desert, and you see a shadow, and you can clearly see like a hand like that in the shadows, and then you hear the titles and the thing. So then that's the end of An Unearthly Child, the ever first episode. So overall, Anthony Coburn has done a fantastic job here, and Waris Hussein's directing is just spot on. This is probably one of the best episodes of the series. If it wasn't for the fact that it is technically the first part of a multi-part story, I think this might be remembered as one of the greatest Doctor Who stories. However, we'll talk about the cavemen story later. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you next time for the next episode, The Tribe of Gum. Now, the script is called The Tribe of Gum, so I'll probably use this to illustrate my points in the next episode. I don't know if that really matters to anybody, but there you go. So I'll see you all next time on the Doctor Who Marathon.